in general, on that more existential level, it seems like the inquiries that I hear that are the most common doorways into realization. There are many doorways, but the three inquiries that seem the most common center around the sensing of our nature as awareness. So there can be this kind of looking at, just sensing like, okay, what actually is this awareness? Maybe it feels more local, like what is looking out my eyes? What has been bearing witness to my whole life and been watching every experience I've ever had and everything I've ever seen and taken in? Or sometimes it's more global and, your attention and senses go out into the world and you're aware through the senses of, listening to the birds and the, bulldozers or cars going by or whatever we've heard this week, and the wind in the trees, or not even just sounds, but vibrations, and kind of opening our whole body energetically to the feeling of the setting. Might be things like temperature, etc., the elements, the feel of our body contacting the chair, the earth, all of those things where the awareness is more utilizing the body and the senses to experience itself. So, but as I was saying yesterday, when that curiosity about awareness reaches the point where we start to transition beyond what is my experience of awareness to what is being awareness itself. It's just like one step further of letting go, or a kind of softening of the sense of self that's abiding in awareness, to like abiding as that. So sometimes, it'll be, the pointer will be like, just invite the sense of the meditator or the experiencer or the questioner to just soften out of the center of experience. So this is a common doorway, and often, not always, but often people have a greater access to like the felt sense of awareness sort of above the shoulders, kind of around the region of the head. It's all the way down, through and through, all the way into the whole body of life and into the whole interior physical body, energetic body. But sometimes initially it's experienced a little bit more of the head. Now, the second line of inquiry that seems the most common in terms of broad strokes would be this entry point of beingness. Many teachers, Nisargadatta being one, Ramana Maharshi being one, really emphasize this sense of dwelling in the sense of I am. And Ramana would sometimes speak specifically about dwelling with the sense of I am in the heart. But it could be just however you feel that sense. And this can be accessed in different ways. Some people will kind of just get this sense of I exist, and just something knows that. Something knows I exist. And they're just sensing, like, what is it that knows that? And what is that sense of existing, being here, being present, or other ways of phrasing it that might be a little bit different nuance, being here, being present. So some people contemplate presence. Or, as Yogananda would say, practice the presence of God, for example. So whether you think of presence as related to God or just presence or amness, existence. There's all these different kinds of approaches given the person. They're all in the same arena. So there can be this sense of maybe interiorizing one's attention and kind of turning within, perhaps into the sanctuary of the heart, or in sort of the quietude of being, just sensing this knowledge of I am. There may be a greater engaging of bodily awareness, kind of like when I was talking about being aware through the senses. There might be just this sense of being a person who's really drawn to being in nature a lot, who that's really like their path to realization. There's just some way of they feel comfortable in form. And it doesn't always have to be in nature. It could be, in lots of situations. But there's just some interest in what is it like to take up residency, and just really feel energetically. They might be the kinds of people that like to exercise a lot, or are really drawn to hatha yoga, or qigong, or all kinds of things. And maybe you got a feeling for this in the qigong that we did together, that maybe somehow it helps you feel more connected and embodied, and that can kind of support this sense of I am. Like, I am here, I am present, this is what it is to be, incarnate. And there's sometimes that strengthens this ability. It almost like energetically anchors one's attention to be able to sense, what it is to be and what beingness is, what existing is. And that feels really different than a kind of approach where, I'm out of here. I'm transcending. I'm heading for spirit. Which is a little bit more above the shoulders. This is something different. It's more like sinking in. And what is it to be? And sometimes there's the mix, the yin-yang blend. And, maybe there's more of a curiosity of a kind of dissolving, like the question I was mentioning that the author and teacher Bernadette Roberts speaks of, that she met her neighbor next door who was so clearly awake to her, and she asked her neighbor how that came about, and her neighbor said, I just kept asking, could there be less of me? Could there be less of me? Could there be less of me? But but she wasn't necessarily asking about awareness, or but it was just kind of like she could feel how her beingness sort of oriented around the sense of me, and she was asking, could there be less? Could there be less? Or in Zen there's a pointer of effortless effort. And so sometimes that sense of exploration of being is one that doesn't assume being as something more here, like additive. It's almost more subtractive. It's like, oh, maybe actually beingness is a little bit less. And that's where it kind of becomes like a koan. And so it's okay not to figure that out, but almost more like to follow your nature and to follow the kind of doorways, like walk through the doorways of that are available through these different traditions and approaches and inquiries, and really make it your own. And just like I was saying, there's that, open palm that can be looked at as giving or receiving. Sometimes, people will have this sense that their perspective kind of moves. Like sometimes they feel more like, I exist. And sometimes like just the tide turns and they'll just have this sense of more like, I don't exist. Like I feel kind of I don't feel defined by a sense of here. And then other times it'll kind of, the tide will turn the other way and that's how they know themselves, is like, I'm here. And that's kind of the flow of this integration of spirit and human. Is it's this kind of dance, and it's paradoxical. Sometimes you kind of feel both in any given moment. Maybe like I'm here, but the sense of what is perceiving that or experiencing that, it feels empty of self, And so these are different. It's not important to be in all the perspectives I'm explaining, but I'm trying to give voice to different aspects of the territory to give you a feel of how it all kind of flows and works together. So the third inquiry that I think is kind of a major emphasis, in addition to the approach of what is it to be awareness, and what is it to be, or what is it to express as beingness. And the third one might be, you won't be surprised because it's me giving the talk. It's something along the lines of, what is it, what is stillness, or what is it, as opposed to the psalm which I was chewing on for all those years, be still. It kind of evolved for me toward more, be stillness itself.